Welcome everyone to another episode of Let's Talk Special Economic Zones. I'm your host, Ainsley Brown. I am the Senior Director with responsibility for regulations, policy, monitoring, and enforcement at Jamaica's Special Economic Zone Authority. Today's episode, we are going to discuss clustering and special economic zones. Now, clustering in relation to special economic zones, or I guess in general, can happen in two ways. It can happen organically, which is typically what happens, and then there is program clustering, and there is a mixed success story around clustering. However, in today's episode, we're going to cover how special economic zones can support both of those in terms of the organic, that which exists already, and also program. So, in terms of the organic, there are many clusters that exist around the world that grow up naturally. Uh, Businesses tend to congregate together within a certain geography. And a result of that, you can get greater economies of scale. Sometimes it results in greater competition, which can result in less profits for the business, but sometimes greater consumer choice. But sometimes you need, sometimes organic clusters don't tend, sometimes, not always, don't have complementarity where one business supports the other. It's more they offer the same things. Where there is greater complementarity, then um, that's when you have the clustering effect has greater impact. An example of this, say you have a series of car dealerships clustered in an area, then naturally you would want auto repair places that you can deal with tires, and also places that you can deal with parts, buy different car parts, and accessories that would work very good together. Those complement each other. And that's how a special economic zone can complement an organic cluster. Sticking on automotive, let's say again, you have that automotive cluster, dealerships, parts, and all of that. You could have a zone that specializes in distribution, and they supply the cluster that is there. And what we're trying to do with that is try to lower costs. So, and eventually move into manufacturing and assembly, not just distribution of goods that come from elsewhere in and then distributed out into the cluster. So that's one way. Also, especially with higher environmental consciousness these days, there's the whole effect of the circular economy, where the waste from one can become an input into production for another. Like, say, for example, you have a beer company that's already operating, and it is um, either by itself or within a cluster. What it can do is create a cluster which complements itself in terms of bringing its suppliers closer to itself, or even utilization of its waste. So, for example, you have bottles that can be crushed, um, and either recycled or turned into sand and used into the building industry. Sand, which I've been surprised that this is actually a highly traded commodity and very valued commodity. Um, it also, from its waste, it can use the waste that it has to do animal feed, for example, and other byproducts. So it can attract other companies that have those as inputs into their production, and bring them there. So that's how organic cluster, SEZ, could support an organic cluster. For a program bond, which is a little bit harder, and it tends to be government led oftentimes, where you decide upon an industry or a set of industries that you want to focus on, and then you can either go after, say, there's different strategies. You can go after the anchor tenant, the main person. So, for example, in textiles, for example, you could go after somebody that actually like makes jeans or makes suits or something like that, and they become the anchor tenant, and then you attract all the buttons, the zippers, the thread, all of those. You attract those along the way. Another strategy is almost like the opposite. You actually attract the buttons, the zippers, the thread, and then you attract the bigger player because they're attracted because their suppliers are right there. So they can. But either strategy can work, but it's not something that is necessarily easy. It's not that's something that happens overnight. You have to be very determined, very deliberate, very focused in order for that to be pulled off. And there have been successes. There have also been failures, but there have been successes where that has happened, where the authorities, special economic zone authorities, the government has focused on, I want to attract this, and I'm going to set the environment to attract it. And then from there, the cluster develops within that particular industry. So those the two different strategies for the programmed clustering is definitely possible. And also you have zones, of course, supporting organic clusters and then the program clusters. So that's it for today. If you liked what I had to say, please like, share, send a comment. Please definitely leave a comment or if you have any suggestions for future episodes, just leave them down below. And bye for now.